And I believe we are live. This is going to be a little more complicated than it usually is because of the couple of new things we have, but I do believe we are live right now. Hi everyone, welcome. This is For the Love of Comics coming to you live and uncut, unedited from New Delhi, India. I'm very glad to be up uh, on YouTube after a long time, live at least. I hope I'm up. I'm going to make sure that I can see things. Well, let's test out a couple of things, shall we? I see Ritika Tiwari saying this will be your very first live. Welcome, Ritika. Glad to have you over here. We've got Shuri Pandey saying hello. Hello. Lash G, hello from Norway. Have I got this on the screen? Yes, I believe I do. Lash G, good to see you here. Shuri Pandey obviously is um, calling in from India. Good to have you. Colin Taylor, hello from Sheffield. Good to see you, Colin. Glad you could make it over here. And welcome everyone else, anyone who's in the chat and isn't saying hello. Of course, I love when people do say hello, and as you can see from the old timers here, tell me where you're calling in from, although I guess where you're viewing from, because that's one of the things I love to see right at the beginning of these live streams is where in the world people are calling in from. Good to see you. We've got Strips and Stories. This is Indrashish. Good to see you, Indrashish. Thank you. Thank you very much. And we've also got Cortados. Greetings from Berlin. Excellent. So we've already hit a number of continents in just the beginning of this. So hopefully we'll get some. And Shuri Pandey knows what's up. So he's already on, or they're already on the hygiene thing, audio, hopefully coming through clearly. I have noticed a couple of times that although my audio is clear, it seems to be a little low volume. I hope that's not the case over here. I do seem to be all right, but I could be going too far. I might be clipping. So you might hear a little bit of popping or clarity problems. If there are any such things, let me know. I am obviously looking at the chat and for the first time able to share the chat, which is one of the things that we wanted to uh, sort of test out over here. You'll see up here we've got a a little bit of a watermark, EV Mux. That is a sort of web-based thing that I'm trying for the first time. I'm not a big fan of having the logo, but that's sort of par for the course for the free models. There is obviously a subscription model, but that's like $20 a month. However, I am considering this. That is one of the things that I'd like to maybe get into, maybe chat about. But for right now, this is sort of something that I have to just put up with. But it does allow me to do stuff like this. Good to see you, Partworks comic reader. Hello from Yorkshire. Um, the Partworks Comics reader has some Doctor Strange open. That's fine. I mean, I guess this is the live streams more than even my videos, I think, can be, at least I've been told, can be good ambient audio and things that are running in the background, sort of like a radio play. And that's just fine with me. A number of people actually have noted to me how they've fallen asleep to the sound of my live streams or the live stream recordings. I could take that as an insult, saying that my demeanor is just so soporific. But as someone who really does listen to some of their favorite podcasters and favorite YouTubers, long form videos, while falling asleep, I actually take that as the highest compliment. There's something quite comforting about it. And that's another reason why I do want to make sure that the audio quality is good in these things, as well as the video quality. Of course, the whole point is to get these live streams to be as close to the quality of an edited video, but keep the energy of live streams. Again, another topic because I'm so chaotic and because this is such an impromptu live stream, I do have a list of things that I think I could discuss over here. But good to see everyone over here. We've got Aris from Greece. Hello, Aris. We've got Paltrax from Norway. Good to see you. Excellent, excellent. We've got a whole bunch of people here. And as I see comments, I hopefully should be able to share things on. I, whoops, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I should be able to share things over there. Just let me know about that audio if you hear it clipping. I think I do have the monitors on. So welcome everyone. Welcome to For the Love of Comics live stream. As I was saying, it has been a while since we've been live, and that's for a number of reasons. And that's another reason why I thought it would be good to have a sort of update video, which we haven't had in a while. In fact, the last update video, I was just looking at it to refresh my memory, and it was right that the last channel update video I used to make about one every 6 months or so, but the last update video I made was a year and 5 months ago, or a year and 6 months ago. In fact, the last update video I made was the one in May of 2024, talking about how I had quit my job and wondering what's going to happen next. And this is sort of a follow-up video for that. Although I didn't feel like making an edited video and I didn't feel like concentrating it in at that much level. And since I wanted to try out this new thing, which is, I have always wanted to share individual comments on the chat and have a couple of other features. There have been a couple of things that I have tried out while experimenting with things on this channel, but also when I've been invited to other people's channels and appreciated the way they do things, and I felt like, oh, I want to do some of that stuff myself. So I thought that I could just bundle it all together and have a sort of update video, tell you a little bit about what I've been up to, what we've been doing, what my plans are, as well as where this channel stands. And of course, this is me just practicing a lot of different things at the same time. So this live stream may or may not end up having a recording. So those of you who are live right now, it might be one of those self-destructing live streams that I sometimes have, which it goes out live and then that's it. The VOD is no longer available. Let's see how that goes. But for right now, we've got Sajad. Good to see you, Sajad, from Mauritius. Glad you could join us. So let's get into it, because one of the things about this free platform, EV Mux, that I'm using right now, one of the things is that it's got a 2-hour limit on broadcasts, which for most people should be more than enough. But for regular viewers of this channel, you know that my live streams have been known to go a little long. And there have been several live streams that have crossed the 2-hour mark on this channel. Some have reached 3 hours, and a couple, very, very special few, have reached 4 hours. This is not going to be anything like that, primarily because of this cap that is there on the broadcast. And also, my computer has been malfunctioning. It has been crashing every now and then. It's about 6 or 7 years old. So it has happened over the course of the last week that my computer's crashed in the middle of Zoom calls and Microsoft Teams calls or Google Meets, Hangouts, whatever they are. It's crashed in the middle of that. So I am sort of paranoid about having a crash in the middle of a live stream. If that happens, this video will end, but I'll try to get back online. So if you're around and I crash out of it, keep an eye on the channel, and I should try to have a follow-up live stream or a follow-up goodbye, at least, if that happens. But yes, so let's talk a little bit about the kind of updates that I have listed over here. I do have some comics that we could discuss as well, although that wasn't really the plan. As the title says, this is actually an impromptu live stream. But one of the things I could talk about, and maybe I will briefly, is over here on this side is one of the pieces of, well, comics that I picked up in my recent sojourn in the United States. My last couple of videos have been about the hauls that I was able to gather while visiting my sister in Illinois, the US. And this is something that I did also pick up, but wasn't able to talk about in those videos. And this is the Scott Pilgrim 20th anniversary box set, the black and white edition. This is something that I've been made aware of some time ago. And honestly, I knew that it was a 20th anniversary edition hardcover box set. But since I own the Scott Pilgrim paperbacks, the original black and white paperbacks, as well as the color hardcovers, I wasn't quite interested because I already had the hardcovers. And then I was told that no, these are, there's also a black and white edition. So that's what really piqued my curiosity, is the black and white edition in this thing. However, the price of this box set was given, the list price was $250, which is a bit on the steep side. However, this was heavily discounted for a couple of days, very briefly, down to I think about $75, which, I mean, it's not a small amount of money either, but comparison, I guess, to the $250 or even to the $190 that you might regularly find it at, seemed like too much of a deal to pass up. So, in spite of having extended myself financially to limits that I shouldn't already have, I threw an extra couple of dollars into this to get this. So this is something that I might get to talking to, and especially if I can see if this it does seem to work, and if my color, yes. So that's another thing. I'm here revisiting. I'm here revisiting all of my setup and making sure things are going. Panels with Pete is here. Good to see you, Pete. Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. Welcome. So this is something that we could talk about and we could take a look at, and or it could be like those sort of TikTok videos that have a sort of video game going while someone's talking about something else in order to hold one's attention. But yes, so let's get into a little bit of the updates. As I said, this is my first update in almost a year and a half since I quit my job. If you're unaware, if you haven't seen that video or things since then, about a year and a half ago, I quit my job of 19 years for a variety of different reasons, and decided, instead of seeking another job at another corporation, that I would try to do something a little different, probably because of my advanced years and a sense of impending mortality. I felt there were things that I wanted to do that I wasn't quite getting to. And although I worked in publishing and I enjoyed working in publishing, I wanted to take those skills and try to do something I truly loved. And so, where I worked in education and academic publishing, I decided that I was going to try publishing comics. And no surprise there, perhaps. And Ashwita, my wife, and I decided to start a small little independent press of our own. And what we mean by an independent press, what we mean by a publishing house, this is something quite interesting, because different people mean different things. They have a different sense of scale and ambition and what they're planning to do. What we really wanted to do was take a sort of twin approach. We wanted to focus on stories. We wanted to focus on editorial development, which we felt we have a skill in professionally. We are writers and editors and have been for decades. But we also felt that there was a sort of paucity in publishing, at least in India, the corporate publishing that we saw, as well as some sort of a inspiring thing in independent publishing, in self-publishing, what we had discovered in things like the Indie Comics Fest over the years. From 2017, I think we started attending this small little comics festival in India, which we saw grow to having multiple chapters in multiple cities all across India, full of just very passionate people creating their own comics and publishing them. And we wanted to do that, inspired by them. So it's sort of in that area that we decided to start our own publishing company. And now it's been a year and a half since that happened. Of course, it took us a while to get the company started because of the legal paperwork, financial things like that. And one of the first things that we published was a comic that I created with Nikhil Gulati, a comics artist and writer who I really admire, whose comics I've talked about on this channel. In fact, I had he has a brief appearance in one of my videos from 2018 when I first attended the Indie Comics Fest. He's one of the variety of people I talked to over there. Ashwita and I discovered a comic of his that he was working on, and many years later it was published by Penguin India. This is before they were Penguin Random House, actually. And then, of course, Ashwita and Nikhil have published a book together, a book on the Mughal emperors of India called the Book of Emperors. And over a period of time, we started working together on this comic that he had an idea for. And we started working on this in full fledged energy, really, I would say, uh, December of 2024, January of 2025. And that's because the first week of March of 2025, had the next chapter of Indie Comics Fest New Delhi. And we set that as a deadline for the publication of the first chapter of our comic. So we brought it out as a black and white single issue of 24 pages with cardstock cover. Indian Summer Press is the name of the company. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Indian Summer Press is the name of our company, and The Sun is Made of Silver, co-authored by Nikhil and myself, with me serving as the writer and Nikhil serving as the artist, is our first publication. And chapter 1 came out in March of 2025 of this year. And then just a couple of months ago, chapter 2, chapter 2, The Sun is Made of The Sun is Made of Silver, also came out. So this is what we are currently publishing right now. Chapter 3 is being created and hopefully should be publishing, we're hoping, by November or so. Alongside this, we are also working on a couple of other comics. There are some comics that Ashwita is writing and collaborating with some artists on. There are some comics that I'm working as an editor on that are being written and drawn by other people. And some of them are in advanced stages. Some of them are in conversation stages. Some of them are in brainstorming stages, and a variety of things. But it's been very exciting. It's been superbly exciting to do this kind of work, this kind of writing, creative and editorial work. I find editorial work as creative and as fulfilling as writing, honestly. It's just a different type of work, but in the same family, and a lot of overlap over there, of course. So working collaboratively has been a fantastic thing, whether it's working with Ashwita in the business and the company side of things, or working with other creators and working with artists, working with other writers. And that's one of the sort of main things that we have been up to. Of course, it's slow going, and of course, would I have liked to have heard from more people and looked at more pitches and looked at more ideas? Of course. I mean, and we got a number of pitches, but we also know that we are a very small company. You know, we are just starting out. We only have 24-page issues out. Nobody really knows who we are or what we do. And the way that we're approaching the publishing models is also quite different. And it's quite different from the corporate publishing. And of course, it's different from self-publishing. So there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, or a lot of ideas that people need to first form about us, I think. But there is a very honest concept, there are a couple of fundamental things that we have based our decisions on. And one of the basic ones is good stories. That's the most important thing. So we firmly believe that if we publish good stories and we put good stories out there, sort of reputation of a publisher comes from what they publish, comes from who they publish, not really from the marketing and the cool snazziness. So there's a lot of behavior that I think we are eschewing, and there is a lot of other behavior that we're embracing. And that's something that has also been very, very exciting, to put our theories into practice, to put literally our money where our mouth is, I think is an exhilarating thing. And there's obviously got to be a management of expectations, but so far I feel it's been extremely fulfilling. So that's one of the main things that we've been doing. And one thing that I did. Oh, right. So before I go any further, I have a note over here to say, on this topic, if you are based in the UK and so our comics right now are available only for sale in India, because international shipping is quite expensive, and we're trying to figure this out. And we'd almost figured something out for the US, and then mail to the US stopped because of the current economic financial situation. But international shipping is very expensive. And I did think that it would be better, once we've gotten to 3 or 4 chapters, to put a package together for people who wanted to buy this internationally. However, only for this week, I sound like a salesman. We have a friend of ours who's heading over to the UK, and they've very kindly offered to take some copies of our comic with them and mail out in the UK. So if you're in the UK and you're interested in getting these 2 chapters, I have the link in the description below. It's extremely limited, because obviously we can't load them up with a whole bunch of comics. So they're only going to be taking a handful of comics, but you can get chapter 1 and chapter 2 as a set, if you're interested, by filling out the form in the description below. So take a look if you're interested. So it's a good thing that I remembered to say that, and now I can cross that off my list. If people join the call, if people join this live stream a little later, those in the chat can remind them. We've got Parikshit US Kati joining a live stream after a long time. I am doing well. Good to see you. Good to see you. And Stone Ape, good to see you as well. Any eventual plans for collected versions of Artworks Comics Reader says yes, absolutely. So this is conceived of as a 144 160 page story. We believe it's going to be 6 chapters of 24 pages each, and then we'll put it together as a trade paperback. But that part of it is still a little further away. Obviously, we have to finish the entire 6 chapters first, but there are other questions that we have. Do we want, as I said, this is a color comic right now. Sorry, this is a black and white comic right now. This is what it looks like, and I'm very fond of it. But Nikhil is interested in maybe creating a color edition. He wants to color it himself. Obviously, you can tell from the front and back covers that he makes that he is very interested in a certain play of color, and I would be extremely excited to see it in color. But we'd have to check the production as well as the cost stuff about that. And then my business partner is also very excited about this idea of hardcovers. Now, I am a much more practical person, and I'm like, black and white paperback. That's the way to do it. But hardcovers and color, these are kind of considerations that we've got to run through before we decide what that collected version is going to look like. There's also questions of whether we want to have multiple editions, whether we want to follow in a crowdfunding approach. Those are things that we'll need to consider before we can get to that. Pete says, it's fantastic. Thank you so much. It is something that we're very excited about. We've got Vimo over here, a YouTuber I greatly admire, and who's been a supporter and booster of ours for a long time. Thank you so much for those kind words. Thank you. very, very happy that you've enjoyed them as much as you have. I'm really excited about people reading these stories. Honestly, this is the whole point is I want to get people. One of the reasons that we're putting it out in 6 chapters in this way is a to give us enough times to get the story properly tuned, but also to hear what people think as we do this in a chapterized form. We could have taken a couple of years to make the whole thing and just put it out there as a graphic novel. And honestly, that's really the bound volume, is really the product that is going to, if anything's going to have a chance of making a dent in the market or making an impact on readership, it's going to be the book. The single issue, 24 pages, isn't really going to move the needle per se, but it is a wonderful format. As a comics reader throughout my life, I've always enjoyed the single issue, and I've really enjoyed the serialized story. I've Whether it's on television or whether it's in comics, there's something to be said for reading a chapter and then having it percolate and then rereading it and rereading it, because you've got to wait until you get the next one, and sort of absorbing and appreciating the craft that has gone into it. So Nikhil and I have taken this approach of creating something that we hope is eminently rereadable, and you can discover more. A lot of people have said this was a very quick read and it went by really fast. I wanted more pages, which I take as a highest compliment. But there is also this aspect of having a certain level of density if you don't want to do a certain kind of exposition. It's just a storytelling technique. In this comic, for example, we decided early on that we wouldn't have any narration, we wouldn't have any captions, not even meanwhile or giving the location or giving the date, any kind of an external authorial voice outside of the presentation of the scene. And so everything is in body language, everything is in dialogue, everything is sort of coded with as little exposition. I mean, I know it sounds more precocious than I mean it to, but that means we hope that, well, in the couple of months that you have before the next chapter comes out, you get to read this again, and then maybe you'll spot something that you hadn't spotted before, or you'll find a connection that you hadn't noticed before. That's something that I've always enjoyed in comics. And this whole water cooler aspect of things, of discussing what the last episode had and having some theories about where the next episode might go, these are the kind of things that we wanted to play with and say that while we work on the full book, is this a way to draw a connection with people? So that is really gratifying to see that, Vimo, and to see that kind of response, to say that we are seeing people write to us and have certain theories or ask questions about the story, as well as talk amongst each other about the story, which is just exhilarating. To think of having somebody react to your work and then having two other people talk amongst each other, about a story that you're in the process of putting out there. So I'm really enjoying the serialization aspect of it, and we are getting to learn a lot about the the world. We are getting to learn a little bit about publishing. We're getting to learn about distribution and bookstores and retail and things like that, which, again, from our professional background, we had some idea of, but especially me, I think, in the corporate publishing world, and I worked at a very big publisher at an international level, these granularities might have become something that I, over the years, had gotten further away from, because we were so much in our editorial pool. We didn't really know all about warehousing and things like that, which is an interesting thing to explore. Of course, we are also finding out about the readership, the market, so to speak, and asking some kind of tough questions about the viability of such ventures. So there is the dream aspect of things. There is the idea of being, following your dreams and doing what you've always wanted to do, etc. But there very much is you have to deal with the real world. You have to deal with the things you see in front of you. However, the question is, can you do it by sticking to your guns? Can you stick to your theory? Can you stick to your principles about business, your principles about editorial work, your principles about creative endeavors, the value of authors, the value of writers and artists? Those are the kind of things that are interesting to me, is that can you make it in the so-called real world while holding on to your idealism, while understanding the game and playing the game, but playing it differently than the sort of common wisdom? And that, honestly, especially for me, a person who's kind of pugilistic, when people make sweeping statements and generalizations, I sort of take it upon myself to prove it wrong. I don't like a dismissive attitude based on no data, based on no experience, based only on, I don't know, biases and prejudice and things like that. And this is one of those things that to me is very important, of saying the world isn't just the way some people say it is. It can be one of myriad ways. And here we are trying to say it can also be this way. So all of that is, I think, something that I can talk about in greater detail if people would like to get into that. But this has been sort of the main preoccupation over the last. I mean, I wouldn't say the year and a half, because I'd say from the beginning of this year, from 2025, has been really focused on this. Um, let's go through some comments, because I got a whole bunch of them coming up over here. Yes, thank you once again, Vimo. That's really flattering coming from you. We've got another very kind thing about the first two chapters. Looking forward to the next four. Chaos and Comics, good to see you. Yes, Opramit, we are working on chapter 3, which should hopefully be out in November. And then, we'll be halfway through. I do think that the sixth chapter might be a little longer than the other 5, but we're not sure about that just yet. Black and white certainly has a place today, even big series like The Walking Dead. And yes, absolutely. And Paul Tracks, one of the things that we have noticed, speaking specifically about India, in India, the sales, I guess, like in many places in the world, the sales of manga have been going up year on year, and it's phenomenally popular. And so many different series, and in legal as well as pirated form. And one of the many great things about that is the naturalization and the normalization of black and white comics to young readers. I remember when I was young, the first time I encountered black and white comics, I really wasn't interested, having grown up on Tintin and Asterix and Archie and, Harvey comics like Richie Rich and Casper, Sad Sack. All of the comics I really thought of were color comics, Uncle Scrooge, so on and so forth. And then there were black and white comics in the newspapers, and they were a different thing. Black and white comics were more disposable, and they were less interesting. It was only Modesty Blaze, because of the nudity in it, etc., that was interesting to me as a child. But over the years, I've encountered a lot of people who have that block, and that block seems to persist somewhere from their notions of childhood reading and color comics. So the fact that there isn't that block, that people are and kids are more likely to read black and white comics than they were when I was young, I think is a fantastic thing. So I think absolutely, and I do like the contrast and the view of black and white comics visually, aesthetically, but there is no doubt that the production aspect of it is greatly helped. And that's why so many independent comics, so many self published comics are black and white, because that's one way of having it be feasible. Because color, I mean, especially in offset printing, it's 4 times more expensive than black and white. It's not just double, and double would be a lot more, but 4 times more expensive is, it's something to consider. I think in digital printing, it's a little more mitigated. Tarun finally is on a live stream. Good to have you here, Tarun. Karan Shrikant, good to see you. I'm going to buy them tonight. You've rejuvenated my love for comics. Yes. Would you mind giving me a quick highlight of the story? A very quick highlight would be what we have on our website. So you can check out our website at indiansummerpress.com. But a long, long time ago, after a great war, an orphan girl meets a wounded soldier. That's the setup. It is a historical fiction. It is not fantasy. But I'll leave you to discover the rest of it. Thank you very much for picking up copies. So, yes, for people in India, it is available, as I said, off the website, the order link, etc., Instagram, so on and so forth. But for right now, it is also available in the UK. I was in the US last month. And we did take some copies over, and I was thrilled that there were viewers of this channel in the US who had ordered copies from us, and we were able to mail them out. Ashwata took them all to the post office and mailed them out herself. We were also able to place some comics into US comic bookstores, including Challengers and Conversation. I mean, all Chicago based because that's where we were, but Challengers Comics, One Stop Comics, which is the LCS for us there in Oak Park, as well as Alley Cat Comics and Quimby's all stock The Sun is Made of Silver Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. And honestly, especially given the fact that Alley Cat and Challengers we discovered just last year. So this was the second time we were back there. We're lucky enough to go there twice in 2 years. But Quimby's we have been going to for years and years and years. So to have the comic available in the Quimby's magazine, in the zines and comics section of Quimby's in the new arrival section, was particularly thrilling. Parikshit asks us, do you have any plan or idea how many chapters you're going to go for? Yes, it's going to be 6 chapters. So 6 chapters of 24 pages, each 144 pages is the way the story, that's the story. So it's not going to be a long running forever series in multiple volumes. It is essentially a slim graphic novel that we decided to do in chapters, that we decided to publish in chapters to teach ourselves a little bit more about the entire process of making comics and of getting people to read them and getting their feedback and sort of working with that sort of community and that kind of readership, as I was saying ahead of time. Charbak, good to see you. Charbak says distribution is the prime challenge of running an indie publishing house. If you manage that, the sky is the limit, I suppose. I mean, distribution is a challenge, but distribution is a challenge for everyone. I think that there's a sort of oh wait, I've gone ahead and messed up something with the messages. Sorry about that. Yes, I think distribution is something that is very interesting for us to learn about, where the discount structure and where your comics sell, etc. I do think that is a big challenge. But having said that, I do believe that distribution is a challenge for everyone. Even the biggest publishers with the biggest print runs, they've got to figure out exactly what that distribution is going to be if they don't want their gross margins to fail. So I think even people who have deals and who have agreements sometimes have not very healthy agreements and deals. And that's unfortunate. I think especially independent creators and independent publishers have a bit of an uphill task because everything is geared towards this larger machinery. And I think the problem that I have, I feel that I must have vanished and come back. But um, now I've lost my train of thought. Very good. No, but Charbak's comment is still up here. Charbak, I know that you have a new comic out. I would be interested in knowing how you've been finding distribution. And also the question I had for you now that you're on here, I can ask you: is your comic available only in Bengali, or is there an English translation of it as well? Um, but this is great to have this conversation over here, because I think it relates to the kind of things that I wanted to talk about. So yes, Charbak is here. This live stream has now arrived, with all our celebrity guests over here. Like, yes, Vibo is here as well, Zepto. So you can see how ascendant my star is at this point of time. Lash G says he really enjoys black and white comics. Hugo Pratt's Corto Maltese. Hugo Pratt's Corto Maltese in color. Is this the new Fantagraphics hardcovers? They're in color? Because I'm telling you what, I was really unhappy to hear that Fantagraphics, not unhappy, but it took me a long time to put the IDW collection together. And because, I mean, I was buying it as they came out. And I do have all of them except for, I think, Moo. And then, just like they did with the Crazy Cats, although this was IDW, Fantagraphics starts bringing out these hardcovers, and I was I'm not gonna get them. No matter what this box set of Scott Pilgrim over here betrays, I'm not gonna do that double dip. But if they are in color and I have the black and whites in IDW, it might be worth a look. But I do love black and white comics and the way they look. Yes, congratulations indeed. Parikshit says India needs a revival of comics. It has faded away as a piece of medium. I suppose. I mean, I'm trying to think if comics were never huge, but they were prevalent. And I know that as an elderly gent myself, they were prevalent in the 80s when I was a child. And that continued to a certain extent in a different form with the American superhero comics, with Gotham Comics reprints, etc., from I think the mid 90s to the mid 2005s. But I'm never quite sure about the prevalence of English language comics being some sort of indicator, because that's my limitation. But I know that comics in Tamil, comics in Malayalam, comics in Bengali, in languages other than English being created in India have always sort of been there. Now, whether they have an opportunity to become a big mass market thing, I'm not really sure. I think I see a lot of people interested in them, but again, I see a lot of people interested in them as merely like Marvel DC model once the movies and the TV shows have sort of proven themselves to be profitable. The comics themselves are not the end goal. The end goal is to have IP that you can license to make into movies and TV shows and things like that. So while that I understand that, I don't necessarily think that will lead to any kind of renaissance of the medium. I'm glad if things get funded, but the reason behind the funding, and therefore the control of that funding and the determination of that, would be very, very different. So I think it all depends on that idea of readership and authorship meeting and coming together. So let's see. I mean, I'm definitely going to try, which is why we've gotten into it. Limited editions of color comics in hardback could be something to think about once the book is complete. Yeah. Or the other way around is that you keep the color in paperback because that is the more popular and probably the more attractive thing, and you have a limited edition hardcover black and white, or something else. We'll have to see. It's all ideas, and let's first see what the size of the market is. Let's see what the enthusiasm of the readership is. The new Fantagraphics Corto Maltese editions will be in color to separate them from the IDW ones. All right, Colin. So you're confirming what I was thinking. And you're saying exactly the same thing that I said, and an excuse to buy them again. I do have that Hugo Pratt's The Man from the North, I think. That was an IDW hardcover. I wonder if I have it up here. Um, no, I must have put it with the IDW Corto Maltese. Um, yeah, but that wasn't bad. I like the colors over there. They were subtle. It wasn't garish. It didn't look like any modern color reprinting. It had a good sense to it. So Tarun asks, how is your TMNT read going? It's all right. I haven't actually picked it up since I got back because there were a couple of other things that I needed to take care of and meetings and calls that I needed to get into. But I'll definitely be continuing with that second volume that I talked about in one of my previous videos. Stone Ape asks, have you left reading general fiction and nonfiction entirely once you got into comics, or has it continued after a hiatus? I got into comics recently because of short attention span. To me, it's the other way around in some ways, where I don't think it's an attention span thing. It's more that my reading of fiction and nonfiction had sort of reached a plateau as far as my excitement and enjoyment is concerned, which is not to say that there isn't fantastic writing there. It just took more and more to truly wow me, or to at least make me feel like I'm looking at something that I haven't before. I think over my whole life, having read as much prose as I have, I got to the point where if you're not reading the absolute cream of the crop, then there's no point, because everything else seems like an approximation of it. And I know I'm being a little uncharitable. These days, I don't read that much prose fiction and nonfiction, yes, and particularly long form journalism, long form nonfiction, creative nonfiction. I read a lot of, but fiction, I think, is very, very rare. Recently, I started reading a collection of short stories by Jonathan Lethem, but it was sort of comics related anyway. So I don't know if that counts. So although I've enjoyed the Jonathan Lethem I've read in the past, but not as much as I read comics. That's for sure. Colin asks, how far have I gotten with the writing? Have there been any surprises? Have things changed in ways you didn't expect? Absolutely, they have. How far have I gotten with the writing? Uh, can I plead the fifth? The way to not incriminate yourself or something like that. I should be further along with the writing, but I think it's the kind of thing you're talking about is that surprise, and the surprise coming from characters that you don't ever, at least I feel, and I'm very happy to have a collaborator who feels the same way, is I don't want them to be puppets dancing on my command. I feel that makes it too jerky, too marionette like. The idea, I think, is the discovery of the character's behavior and the character's decisions. And sometimes, if you've put two or three pieces together, the fourth and the fifth piece kind of become inevitable in some ways because of the previous pieces that you've put together. And discovering what that inevitable fourth or fifth piece is the surprise. And then, as a writer, I think you become more of a transcriber instead of a sculptor. You're sort of taking what you're seeing happen in front of you. So that part of it means that there are things that you're like, okay, now this has got to happen, and then that's got to happen, and you try to write that, and it seems very forced, and it feels very uh, again, it's the job of a writer, but it feels too much. It feels overwritten. It feels overly controlled, and it doesn't feel fluid enough. It doesn't have that fidelity to character. And then discovering what the characters do, I think, is worth it. Is worth throwing out the couple of pages that you wrote because you wanted things to be a particular way, and instead you choose to observe and then transcribe. And so that takes a little longer. So that's definitely happening. But I also think that in the story that we are writing, Nikhil and I, we had talked about it for a long time. We had discussed it endlessly. And in fact, we had reached a point of frustration in our endless discussion, which is when we said, screw this, we're just going to start doing it, because otherwise we're going to second guess and third guess and why this and not that. So not having the whole thing worked out is also exciting in some ways, because it gets you off your butt and gets you doing things, and then it gives you the joy of discovery instead of you being bored, having already figured everything out, and then just going through the process of putting it down. Um, Dan, thanks. Looking forward to it. I'd love to know what you think of it once you're done reading. I do prefer the black and whites. I guess this is the Corto Maltese, and Corto Maltese not written by Pratt. Sure, I guess those can be in color, but yes, I think even the Pratt color, as I was saying, that I've seen is not bad. Mostly Retro says that so glad you were able to bring to the US. Loved the first two issues. Thank you so much for picking those up. And I'm really, really thrilled that I got to get copies to the US. That was just fantastic and a dream come true. And I'm so thrilled to see the positive feedback on this story because I mean, this is I'm not going around asking my family members to read this or anything like that. This is a group of people who I know love comics, and finessed comics are appreciated. So to get the compliments from this crowd is truly the high compliments. It's not someone who's just a friend of yours and who wishes you well, which I always love and admire and affect. I mean, I'm very appreciative of that, but the admiration that I have for a well-written comic, I know that all of you share that. That's what we like discussing on this channel. So having that, I think, is the most thrilling thing for me. um there was a podcast that said men stop reading fiction after the age of 40. Yeah, I wonder if, I mean, it might be one of those general sweeping statements, but maybe many men do stop reading fiction after the age of 40. I've known men who just don't read fiction, who only read nonfiction. I went to college with people who didn't read fiction, and I was an English literature student, so it was very odd for me that even at that age there were people who just didn't see the point of fiction, or weren't interested in fiction, or weren't enraptured by the beauty of modulating fiction. They felt nonfiction was the way to go. But this might be. Do you mean as opposed to reading in general, as in they keep reading but they just stop reading fiction? And I'd be interested in knowing why. Um, Shuna's Journey by Miyazaki, that's a good one. It's, you can see where Princess Mononoke and a couple of other things, you can see the roots over there. It's a little bit of Nausicaa, it's a little bit of Mononoke. Katz's First Kingdom and the two sequels in the Titan editions last month, beautiful work, albeit with the later work not as heavily inked as the original 24 chapters. I have not read First Kingdom. I've read a number of Katz's short pieces, but First Kingdom might be something worth checking out. Um, Yeah, Nausicaa, the 2-volume box set, that's still available. And I have always felt that one is a great deal. At least the way it was priced, at least around here for the longest time, I couldn't believe that there were so many other books that were so much more expensive. And that 2-volume Nausicaa was a great price. I think Building Stories by Chris Ware was another one that I think it has a $50 price, and it was always available for $35, and sometimes it was available for $20. And I couldn't believe it. Every time I saw it, I wanted to pick up another copy. I was just like, how can this be? Even at $50, I thought that was a valuable um, item, just from the way that it is produced. So Nausicaa is another one of those. Um, no interest in buying the colored editions of From Hell. Yeah, I did take a look at the From Hell colored edition, the master edition. I mean, it's subtly colored. It's not garish or anything like that. But I agree with you. There's no real point to it. But it's because Eddie Campbell wanted to do it, and I have a lot of trust in him. If it was a marketing thing or something that came from a publisher, etc., I think I would have been a lot more cynical. And I think I was cynical, but then I read an interview of his of how he wanted to do it and how he had a thought, and I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And again, I don't think there was anything offensive about it. It was just not necessary. That. as I thought. The deluxe edition that has a cover overlay page coupled with black and white page underneath. Well, yes, now you'll have to make an acetate overlay for every single page. I can just imagine what the what the cost of that would be. Many things become repetitive. Darn it, I'm not sure. I'm not sure which one that was in response to. I think my chat over here is too small for me to. Um, Kolkata Book Nerd says that the Bengali comic scene did have a turn in the 90s. That's great to know. Um, you can read multiple novels simultaneously. Yeah, you can. I think someone else was asking me somewhere else. Oh, I think it was on a live stream. I was over at Highland G's channel, where Highland G and Black Pole from the comic board and I were having one of our, I hope it's a monthly sort of live stream now. And someone asked over there whether, we read multiple books at the same time. And every now and then I would maybe read a big, heavy, serious work and small, light things at the same time, but usually I read one through, finish it, and then move on to the next thing. I will take breaks between trade paperbacks, for example. So currently I've finished one trade paperback of the Immortal Hulk. I'm going to read something else and then go back to the Immortal Hulk second trade paperback. So I can, if it's a long series in multiple trades, I could do that. But again, it depends on the work. When I was visiting my sister, my nephew was reading Feral, and he had 3 trade paperbacks of Feral, and I read them all back to back because it was a pretty, tense kind of zombie, not really, but rabies story that was quite gripping. So I think it depends on the work. Um, Kolkata Book Nerd asks, did I get to read the new Shaolin Cowboy Cruel to Be Kin? No, I have not yet picked up. Now you're reminding me of, let me write this down. I have forgotten to pick that up. Yes, so I'll have to take a look at it because that's just wonderful, outrageous stuff by Jeff Darrow. But thanks for reminding me. Um, Chaos and Comics says, what's going on? Right, 2, 3 prose books at once, normally nonfiction, fiction, something on the Kindle. Yeah, I can see nonfiction and fiction, for example. I can see something like short stories and a novel, maybe. I think 2 novels at the same time or 2 nonfiction works at the same time might be a little odder for me. But again, different people have different ways, like that perennial question about, do you listen to music when you read? I cannot. I mean, forget music with lyrics. I can't even listen to music that's just instrumental music when I read. But there are lots of people who love having music when they read. So there's no right or wrong, or there's no only one way to do things. It's interesting to me how something that is impossible for somebody is an absolute necessity for somebody else. Strips and Stories asks, is distribution primarily a challenge in India? Bengali comics seem to be relatively doing well. Is there strong distribution networks across Bengal and Bangladesh? Yes. I mean, again, I think that really has to do with the companies. The publishing companies having the distribution network or tapping into an existing distribution network effectively means a number of different things. It doesn't mean just, do I know a good distributor? Because that's the way I think most people think. You can get in touch with any number of distributors and they will have terms. It's a question of, can you exist on those terms? So the other thing is, people assume automatically that if you have distribution, you're going to have sales. Now, while it's true that it's difficult to get sales without having some form of distribution, it's not true that by having distribution, you'll automatically have sales. Now, for a publisher, what is a sale? A sale is a sale to someone who pays them money, which could be a distributor. It depends. If they have a no returns policy or if they have only a 10% returns policy, they'll make their money by moving their units off, not to the end reader, but to someone who's going to resell their books. That could be a retailer, it could be a distributor, it could be a wholesaler, it could be a number of different things. And some of these terms overlap, and some companies or institutions wear multiple hats. So the question is, do you have the right print run? Do you have the right product for the market that you're trying to get to? Do you have the right pricing? Do you have the right discount structure? And are you keeping an eye on the consumption patterns and capitalizing on the right places and pulling back from the wrong places? So all of that sort of works together in saying, so when people say distribution is a challenge, what do they actually mean? Do they mean there are no distributors? That's not true. Do they mean there are no booksellers? That's not true either. What they mean is someone's going to ask me for a 60% discount, and they're not going to pay me until they have sold it. So they're only going to take it at consignment value. So that's something that when you are a big publisher, if you're Penguin Random House or HarperCollins, etc., you have the muscle. You have the muscle to negotiate these terms. You got the muscle to negotiate the payment credit period and whether you can return things or not and how much discount. You also have the ability to incur a huge print run, which will give you a small unit cost, which allows you to give a bigger discount. You've got warehouses in which you can store things, and there are pressures on these companies. They've got a different set of issues. But when the network is geared towards that behavior, you've got to print 10,000 copies at a time. You've got to, give a 60% discount. You've got to be able to have the capacity to wait 90 days before you're paid anything. You've got to be able to deliver a new ISBN every month. You've got to be able to deliver 50 ISBNs per quarter, whatever that may be. If you don't have that capacity, you're not going to be able to tap into the existing models the same way that others who do have that capacity can. And that's what I was talking about earlier, is a lot of this means rethinking it and calibrating one's own expectations and one's own ideas. And once again, this is not a judgmental thing. It's not a good, bad, or worse thing. It's just a question of what works for somebody doesn't work for somebody else. So when you have a smaller publishing house, when you have only one book, you're going to have a lot of trouble being heard because you are trying to get into a system which doesn't care about one book. It cares about a list of books. It cares about lists of ISBNs. It cares about huge front lists, huge back lists, and it cares about the churn. It cares about the turnover. So you've got to follow a different path. At least that's my theory. My theory is individual, self-published, um, small publishers, small presses shouldn't try to play the game of the big publishers and shouldn't set their expectations on that game. But also, that's something that you have to talk to people about, which is the process that we find ourselves in the middle of things. Yeah, so publishers are really, that's the trick, right? Publishers, what they're able to do is they're able to consolidate. You can think about this and publishing works in a very similar way, although there are great differences and in some major things. At some other levels, they're very similar, whether you're talking about publishing video games, whether you're talking about studios making movies, what is a developer and what is a publisher, what is the role of the creative, etc. All of these sort of things. And how does somebody get paid? How do they incur those costs? How do they recover those costs? This is the model that publishers benefit from, is that they benefit from scale. The bigger you get, the more titles you have, the more reputation you have, the more pull you have, the better it is. So when you're starting out and nobody knows who you are and nobody knows if you're really good and you've only got one book, it's a very different situation than if you're 40 years in the business. You've created a reputation for yourself. I'm not saying it's easy for them, but they've got a different set of problems. And new publishers and self-published people have a different set of problems. Um, yeah, Edward, I think you're talking about Shuna's journey and not Nausicaa, because Nausicaa, I think, is a blind buy. You should just go ahead and buy Nausicaa. But Shuna's journey is not necessarily an essential. I mean, it's a good book, but it's not an essential read the way that Nausicaa is, um, at least in my opinion. The manga is probably his darkest work. Yeah, I can see that. Um, Edward is working on editing one of his comics pages, and that is a full color one. Edward, are you going to be publishing it? Are you going to be printing it in paper, or is it going to be mainly an ebook? Because, see, when it comes to an ebook or a digital read, over there, the color black and white thing, from the cost perspective, stops mattering. But when you are talking about the manufacturing and the printing, I think there it becomes different. Um, Akshay says still not able to get over Tintin. Well, there's a lot. I mean, like, I have a live stream, and this is an interesting thing because, man, we just got completely sidetracked. I'm on topic one, or no, I'm on topic three of all the different things I had written down, and I have to end this broadcast in 55 minutes because I have the limit on this thing. But yes, I had a live stream once in which I said what to read next after Tintin and Asterix, because I do know, especially in India, a lot of us grew up with them, and those were the first comics we read, or those were very formative comics. But then I also know that a lot of people sort of didn't read any comics. A lot of people I'm related to, for example, never read any comics after that. So whenever I talk about comics, they're like, oh, like Tintin, or like that's the one place. And any comic, and it's not just about Tintin. And of course, I love Tintin. I've got like 20 videos of Tintin. I've got live streams, etc. But any comic, if you make that the only book, any book should not be one book or only one series, and that's all we read. There's always a thing that's a favorite of ours, a thing that we love, whether it's for nostalgia, whether it's for historical reasons, whatever. But reading more and discovering more and finding more is interesting. And this is a thing that I will talk about Tintin in particular, because I do have one note on Tintin over here. But the Partworks Comics reader says that Immortal Hulk is so good. I really have enjoyed that first trade. Horror can be hit or miss for me as well. Indeed, I'm not always. Horror is not always automatically a hit. There are certain things that have a very good chance of hitting with me. Science fiction is one of them. I mean, I'm not saying there isn't bad science fiction, but I lean towards science fiction. I lean towards, the way that in video games, I lean towards RPGs. There is a tilt factor involved. I don't necessarily have that tilt factor with horror, but I think that makes a good horror movie or a good horror comic really stand out to me, where I go, now that is something I really enjoy. So yeah, I would agree, for me as well so far. However, that is going to be the topic of another live stream over at the Comics Binge. Comics Binge is a YouTube channel who's he's had me over on his channel a number of times, and the last time I was over, so we've talked about our favorite top five Kurt Busiek comics. We've had good action scenes. We each picked 3 action scenes we really liked. There's some great topics in conversation with him. And the last time we were over, we played this game in which I recommended a comic to him and he recommended a comic to me. So he recommended that I read Craven's Last Hunt, a book that we hadn't read, and I had not read Craven's Last Hunt. So he recommended I read Craven's Last Hunt, and I recommended he read Day Tripper. So if you go over to his channel, you can find that live stream. The second chapter of that is going to be, he has recommended that I read The Immortal Hulk, and I have recommended to him that he read Granville by Brian Talbot. So we're going to have a video soon. We're going to have a live stream in which I will talk about The Immortal Hulk and he will talk about Granville, and we'll see what we thought of it. Um, what are your thoughts on the audio dramatization of graphic novels such as Sandman? Yeah, I mean, it's an adaptation. That's fine. There's nothing that's immediately wrong about it. I think when it comes to the Sandman, it was more like a radio play. I didn't really think about it as an audiobook. An audiobook I think about as a single narrator most of the time, and a single narrator with maybe a little bit of sound effects or a little bit of audio, like maybe music or something like that, but mainly being the reading of the prose. I think the little bit that I heard of the Sandman audiobook, it seemed more like a radio play. It seemed more like a production with multiple, with the cast and with voices and with sound effects, etc., which is, it's cool and all of that stuff. But yeah, it's not as good as the comics, even the TV show. Um, it is immersive, I suppose. But I mean, I find the comics immersive, so it's good for um, I guess that ambience idea, So as I said, a radio play. I like radio plays. I don't think there is any. I don't think there's any problem over there either. Drew finally got a live stream. Good to have you over here. Checking in from Oregon, USA. Drew is one of those who picked up 2 copies from us. Enjoyed the first 2. I'm very, very happy to hear that, and I'm excited for you to read the subsequent chapters. And the popularity of anime during lockdown, yeah, and I think it's been growing. I think lockdown really kicked it into the next gear, but it's something that I saw even in the United States, in Europe. The phenomenal rise of popularity of manga series, I think, is fantastic. It's as I said, I feel the same way about that I do about the popularity of Dogman or Captain Underpants or the popularity of Raina Telgemeier's Babysitter's Club or Smile Sisters drama, etc. It's like it's all comics, and the medium of comics to tell stories of so many different kinds is just being proven. And so, therefore, it doesn't have to stay relegated to whatever it is that some people thought or some people might still think comics are about. And in India, for example, when growing up, we didn't have as many superhero comics as the American Marvel DC stuff. I mean, some of us knew it because we were nerds, etc. But that wasn't what the common conception of comics was. The common conception was something like biographies of freedom fighters. And like I'm talking about not necessarily for parents, because those were the comics that they bought for their kids. Yeah, this is good for you. Learn about your culture, learn about your history, and things like that. So a lot of comics were treated as being dry, boring ways of trying to get kids to read, kids who wouldn't read prose. It's a form of remedial reading, and you need to have this. Or you would have things that were extremely slapstick and extremely lowbrow. So either they were deadly boring, because they were so good for you, and they were full of the intentions of adults rather than the enjoyment of kids, or they were things that adults absolutely hated, similar to that. So I like this idea of people understanding that genres and tone, and even whether it's for kids or whether it's for adults, etc., can come from can be conveyed in the comics medium. Sort of the way that I used to give people Joe Sacco books, because Joe Sacco was the first person I read who I, discovered that you could have journalism in comics form. So it had such an impact on me that I was able to bring that out for people and say, oh, you think comics are for kids? Look at this. If you think comics are for kids, look, like that's the sort of thing that I think is happening because of all of these different things right now. Um, Last, she just read Dracula by Matt Wagner and Kelly Jones. Jones's art is fantastic. Strips and Stories, glad you enjoyed that. Um, it's on Patreon as the pages go up, but plan to physically publish when it's finished. Want at least one hardcover version. So this is for Edward's comic right now on Patreon. Very cool, very cool. Yeah, one hardcover version of my comic. I've met people like that who've got like one hardcover or one color edition of their work that's for them because that was the sample copy. But then when they go to market, they've got to make some choices. So in fact, I have uh, over here a larger format, earlier version of this thing. This is just roughs and stuff like that, when we were just trying to figure out how big we wanted to print the art. And interestingly enough, this size was the same cost as this size, and we ended up going for this because we just found this to be a much more pleasurable reading format than this one. This felt a little bit like photocopied things. It's another one of those tricks, where you say that bigger is always better in comics. And I was just like, nope. From our very first comic, we were like, no, we don't want A4. We'll go for B5. Thank you very much. Um, yes. these are Blake and Mortimer. I must have missed the context over here of what's come before. Been reading The Kingdom. Might learn French to read more. I wanted to learn a little French to read some of those black and white Tintins that I had picked up. Most of the black and white Tintins I'd found, the early facsimile ones, were in the English translations, but not all of those 9 have come out in English translation. So I did pick up a box of all 9 of them in mini format, and then have to read in the French. All right. So at this point of time, where were we? There was a number of questions, great discussion. But oh yes, Tintin. So here's the thing about Tintin. Wow, here's I almost made this really pouty sort of video in which I realized that my videos recently, and over even my historical videos, which have always had a very healthy viewership over the years. Even if I made them 5-6 years ago, they continue to be viewed and continue to get comments on them, something that I've really enjoyed. But I do realize that there is an inordinate viewership on my channel for my Tintin videos. There are a number of people who find my channel because of my Tintin videos, in particular because of that box set review and the comparison of the 2 box sets. And those have gone, past 50,000 views, etc., which for my channel, where I barely get like 1,000 views or 1,500 views on a video, is phenomenal. But I also notice that a lot of people are like, "Hey, you should make more Tintin videos," and I'll make a video about Alison Bechdel's latest book and a couple of the other reads, and then I'll have a comment saying, "Dude, make more Tintin videos," or "Bro, when's your next Tintin video coming out?" And I want more Tintin videos. And after a while, it becomes a little perplexing, because I'm like, okay, I mean, I like Tintin. I don't need to prove that I like Tintin, but I like other stuff too, and there's other stuff that I'd like to make videos on, and then it'll be almost constant. I've also seen that there are a number of viewers who have become subscribers because of the Tintin videos, but they're not necessarily interested in anything else. So I almost made this pouty little video saying, here's why you should probably unsubscribe. I might still make that video because I don't expect many people to be watching this live stream, and especially an hour 17 in. But it is something that strikes me as it. Even for a tiny channel, even for a non-existent in YouTube senses channel, even there are these weird things where you're like, well, here's the kind of stuff that I'm interested in doing, and here's the kind of stuff that's interesting me. And then you see a sort of reaction to that being, "Meh, I'm not really that interested in that." And now, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to put the blame on viewers. I have noticed that a number of my videos just get fewer and fewer views. My new videos that I put out there, they don't get as many views as I would have thought they would, given the number of subscribers. And I've tried to figure out a little bit on why that is, and that's the way YouTube works. Is YouTube shows it to a certain number of people, and if those people say yes and they view it, then they show it to more people. And if people view it for a long period of time, then it's more likely to be shown to other people. Now, if the first group of people you show it to are not interested, it doesn't go to anyone else. So I've noticed that a lot of people have commented to me saying that, "Oh, I didn't know you'd put up videos, or you haven't put up videos in a long time." And I'm like, "Yes, I did. I put up I put up a video 2 weeks ago, and I put up a video 2 weeks before that, and I had a live stream before that." But it never gets advertised to them. It never gets put in front of them. Now, I know that when you hit subscribe and all of that stuff, you're supposed to, but not all your subscribers get to see these things, which is why it's a little frustrating in some ways. Of course, it doesn't matter to me whether I get 1,000 views or 2,000 views, but it does somehow matter to me, because I want people to watch the things I make, especially if I take a lot of time editing them and color grading them and getting the audio just right and putting something into the lights and the equipment, etc. I want that to have a certain reaction. I want that to have a certain viewership. And if people are not interested, I can take the lesson that, look, people just don't like this kind of video, make something else. But I didn't start making videos that I thought would get me views, I started making videos that I wanted to make. I wanted to make them about the books that I wanted to talk about, and I wanted to talk about them the way that I wanted to talk about them, which is extremely garrulously, very, very long windedly, not at all professional, not at all polished in any way. At the same time, I didn't want to make only one type of video, and I wanted to make a variety of different types of videos and try different things like live streams. I was very nervous about trying live streams. I didn't do live streams for the first 4 years or 5 years that I had this channel, I think. So. That's one of those things. I didn't want to take the camera out of the house. I didn't want to take it into bookstores. I didn't want to do top down shots, or I couldn't figure out how to do top down shots. So, my point was that I want to do different types of videos, but different types of videos attract different people, and the people who are attracted by one type of video may not be interested in another type of video because they're here for that, whether it's Tintin or whether it's absolute editions or whether it's a Batman thing or whether it's manga that you talked about. And I often get that. It's like, why don't you talk about more manga? Why don't you talk about this manga? Why don't you talk about that manga? As if people want me to talk about their favorite comics. Whereas I think the way that I react to YouTube and the way I use YouTube is I often will look up things and look for a particular thing that I want to find. But I wouldn't necessarily subscribe to that channel. I'd subscribe to a channel who I want to watch for the people who have that channel because of the way they do things and the kind of things they do. Now, some of those channels will be, yes, they will have a certain formula, they will have a certain pattern, and you know what you're going to get on a variety of topics, but you know the format that it will follow. And then there are channels that won't. So I think somewhere I've painted myself into a little bit of a corner with the number of videos that I have on certain topics and the kind of videos they are, so on and so forth. And a year and a half ago, when my last update was out, a year and a half ago, I started a Patreon because I no longer had a job. I no longer had a salary. And I was worried that by not having a salary, the first thing to go to get cut out would be this channel because over the years, I mean, it's just a hobby channel and I do it as a hobby. And whatever money I've invested into it, it just came from my salary. And I never had a Patreon or anything like that. But I wanted to make sure I could keep making the type of videos I wanted to make. And so, therefore, I put up this Patreon to basically help me cover the costs of things like Adobe Premiere. Now, I did try to learn DaVinci Resolve, which is free at least up to a certain level, but that node-based editing, etc., is a little tough for me to wrap my head around. And I've got other things that I want to do, and I'm comfortable with Premiere, but I wanted to put music in there and have music subscriptions, so I don't have to worry about copyright and things like that, and even things like live streams, where I have been working with Streamlabs, but I can't invite guests and I can't talk to guests in the way that I want to. Now, with this, apparently I can. And this is something that I'd like to experiment with because apparently I can just put a link out here and one of you can join me. If anyone is with a camera and a microphone and ready to go and they want to jump on this live stream, let me know in the chat and maybe I'll share the link and you can jump on this live stream and see. But this, I think, I can invite people, although there might be a cap on the free version. The StreamYard that I was looking at is even more expensive, and then the best resolution is 720p. This one is 1080, so this is good. But I don't like the logo. But if I wanted to get rid of the logo, that's another $20 a month. My point is, there are things that cost money, and I wanted to at least just make sure that money part of it could be covered by the Patreon. And I was thrilled to see the number of people who showed up to support me on Patreon, which was just more than I imagined. And it was fantastic. And because of that, I was able to do the kind of videos I wanted to do, make the kind of videos I wanted to make. And I don't know if we've seen, if we've seen, um, let me see if I have my videos up here. Um, Right. Let me see if I can share my screen on this. This will give me another ability to. Can I? All right. So I think I'm sharing my screen. So this is the yeah. So this is my channel. Right. So I've come here from the latest. So this is where I updated what happens next. This I quit. This is the video in which I this thing. And after that I had a few more days of the 31 days of comics, so I made this video on Elmer, which I'm really proud of, and then this visualization of an essay that I wrote for Inklab magazine, zine in India comics, which is 5 comics to do with the jungle. Then a very rapid bookshelf tour over here, another one of my 31 days of comics, then 3 debuts, this book on Leica, this spotlight on Love and Rockets, my 20-minute spotlight kind of thing. This was something that my patrons and channel members voted for, and it took me a while to make it, but I was really proud of it. In fact, I was very proud of all of these. They don't have that many views and things like that. But I was very happy with the editing and the ability to use different kinds of audio, different kinds of music. I started using more and more music. My cinematography, I think, got better. And then the things that I really enjoyed was getting together with conversations like this conversation with Earl Grey, this conversation with Comic Crack, this conversation with Off My Shelves, on various topics. Just a sort of, it wasn't live. I recorded them and then edited them. That was just because and I didn't know whether that would happen. And the same, this little day 17 of 31 days of comics is another one that I was very proud of. Then I've got some like excursions out and about, haul videos, an interview with Ryan North at Comic Con India, a box of comics from the UK, haul video, and then this top 10 comics for kids, a sort of follow up. So I'll say over here, I've got like haul videos, I've got out and about sort of, out there wild sort of videos. I've got conversations with people, and I've got those massive sort of spotlights. This 10 comics for young readers, this, Love and Rockets. These are, it's a good, I think, distribution, I would like to say, of videos. And I was very happy with that kind of approach of doing all these different kinds of videos, and I felt really invigorated by the fact that I had that support from the channel members and the patrons. So thank you so much for all of you. I know that there are many people in the audience who are channel members and patrons, so I really wanted to say thank you for that, because not only not only was it allowable for me to continue doing these videos, but it was actually, I could take more chances, I could take more risks, because I didn't have to worry about whether the numbers would be enough. I know someone's out there giving me support. And this is something that's interesting, because with Patreon and with channel memberships and things like that, things eventually fall off. So a year and a half later, I don't have the same number of supporters that I used to, and that's completely fine. It's understandable. There are some people who like to support for a certain amount of money, and they want to support for a certain period of time. And that's fine. But what you hope is you get new supporters to like sort of replace the ones who are falling off. But as that sort of falls away, I had questions for people to say, what would you like to see on the channel? What would you like to see more of? What would it be the kind of idiosyncratic individual, like, because I know I'm not going to go out there and cater to exactly what people say. Oh, I want to see more Tintin and I want it done this way, etc. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that kind of support means a lot, because then you get to do your own thing, and you don't have to worry about an algorithm, and you don't have to worry about advertising. Somebody said to me that, I love your live streams, but when I watch the recording, it's full of ads. And I was like, but I don't have, so I went and looked at the settings, and I had my settings set to moderate ads, not even regular or high. I had it on the lowest setting, and that created so many ads that I was really, really upset. And then there was this time when I was watching one of my videos to check on the ads, like through because I have premium, so I don't get ads. So I was watching it through an anonymous, like on incognito, and I saw ads for products and political parties in an election year that I wasn't in agreement with. And at the same time, I don't have anything to say. As like people can object to your uh, material and content and say, I'm not going to advertise on that channel, but you can't say, I don't want those people advertising on my channel. So I didn't realize how many ads there were, and I didn't realize who those ads were for. And at the same time, the ad revenue kind of goes from $50 a month to $40 a month to $35 a month. And I'm like, it's not even worth it. You know, I mean, like, sure, it'll buy a couple more books, but here are a couple of things that I'm thinking, which is what I want to get to as an update. I am going to make more videos of the kind that I want to make, which means that I want to make spotlight videos, but they take a long time for me to write and get into the shape that, what am I going to say about it? Do I have anything important or meaningful to say at all? Does anyone care about what I have to think about Love and Rockets or Jiro Taniguchi, a way I want to make them, but they time to splice conversations. I want to do people over to my 30 minutes, I'm being told, get software like this so that I don't have these 30-minute limits and I don't have limits to the number of people I can have. Sure, I want to have like 5 or 6 people on at the same time and like be a little bit of an MC and mediate what's going on over here. At the same time, on my Patreon and my channel memberships, I do want to talk a little bit about not just the comics, because I've been, unboxings and things like that, but I don't want it to be at the cost of what's on the channel. I do want to talk about publishing. I do want to talk about editing, and I do want to talk about the business of doing comics. And I think that would be a good thing for me to do for the closest supporters, as give them an insight into how it is to run a publishing company and try to make a difference. So that's something I've been thinking of. Another thing that I want to do on this channel is I want to do, as I said, more conversations, more live streams, because live streams are more low key in such a way. And I want to do things like showing books and talking about books while other people are also commenting on them, which is another reason why I want something like that, is that I want to be able to put up things on the screen and maybe put things up on the screen while I'm talking. I want that kind of interactivity. I want us to be able to interact on live streams, but also add value so that that video recording with everyone's comments, with everyone's inputs, becomes a resource for other people. So people are not here only to listen to what I have to say. They're here to listen to what we have to say. Even if we disagree, I'd like that argument to be on the record, whether it is by sharing a live stream or whether it is by sharing comments. Those are some of the things that I'm thinking of. When it comes to the Patreon and the memberships, there are also non-comics things that I'm interested in. For example, this time in my halls, I also had a bunch of not choose your own adventure, but fighting fantasy stories, like, because I remember reading these books when I was very young. I did pick up a couple of prose books, again, children's books that I found great editions of. There are board games that I am a big fan of. There are video games that I like playing. So there are those kind of things that I think this channel is not the right place for, but I would like to have on Patreon and things like that. So those are the kind of things I'm thinking about, what to offer people as an experience and for a community that makes sure that I can continue to spend the way that I want to spend on this channel and not have to sacrifice it just because I decided to give up my job and, put all my money into a business that may or may not work out. I want this to be, of course, it's linked. It's all through me in some ways, but I do want it to come I do want this to have its own insulated safety net when it comes to, like, yeah, I want to be able to get the books and talk about the books in a way that people appreciate. And how would I do that is something that is on top of my mind. So those are the kind of things that I've been thinking about. More conversations, more talking to people, more live streams, and maybe I can do one big video a month and 3 live streams a month. So I'd want to have something every weekend, but 3 of those weekends would be maybe a recent reads or a discussion or a group of people having a conversation or a debate about a particular topic, or just a hangout like this. And then one of those weekends would be like a big meaty video that I have spent some time in putting together. And that's the way I would use the support that my patrons and channel members would bring me. The business of publishing, things other than comics, etc., the journey of a publisher. And one thing that I do want to experiment with, and this is the risky bit of it, is I think I'm going to turn off ads on my channel. And I'm not going to do this forever, because um, because I have a theory, and this is, I think, something I tried once before, is if you turn off ads, if you turn off ads, before it was like, you may not want to monetize your channel, but YouTube is still going to show ads. So the logic is, well, you might as well get a piece of that. But if I turn off all ads, I'm worried that YouTube will stop showing my videos to people, because anyway, I think there are all these changes that keep happening and my views keep going lower and lower. So I'm just like a little nervous about turning off ads. And then it's not because of the money, but it's because of that viewership. But I think I've decided I'm going to run this experiment. So for 1 month, starting today, I'm going to turn off all ads and sacrifice that $35 a month or $40 a month um, that I get, and see if that makes a difference to my viewers, whether the views go down or not. If the views don't go down, then I'll keep the ads off. If it becomes something, well, anyway, we'll come back to it in 1 month's time and see how it goes. And the other thing that I thought I would try is, I thought I would delist um, my 2 most successful Tintin videos, just because it's just a thing. It's like they're extremely popular. They continue to bring in subscribers, but the subscribers don't care about any of my other videos. And when I put a new video out and my latest subscribers are shown that latest video's thumbnail, they don't click on it. So then that doesn't get shown to anybody else. I don't know if this is going to solve anything, but it's a thing that I think I'll take. So that's about 100,000 views that I'll chop off my videos, off my channel's algorithmic credentials. But let's see what happens. So you guys heard it first. Turning off ads and delisting 2 Tintin videos. Let me see if that makes a difference. In the meantime, I'll see if the Patreon or the channel memberships see any sort of uptick, see any kind of resurgence. Maybe I'll need to change things around a little bit. But that's what I'm thinking of. That's what I'm thinking of, because I want to keep making videos. I want to keep doing this channel as I do my publishing, as I do my writing, but I do want to integrate them together. And once again, I want to bring the same level of theoretical and practical, the idea of putting your money where your mouth is. That's very important to me. So I think that's what I want to try with this channel as well. I know that's a lot to just sort of throw in there, but that's because I got that end of broadcast warning. So I had to quickly go through my list of things which I currently have done. So let me go through the chat. I saw some nice comments, Edward. Thank you very much. Let me go through the chat and see if sort of says, coloring my mini 24 page, absolutely out of ideas to promote it once it's finished. If you're in India, let's chat. Promotion is very, very difficult, but I think the Indie Comics Fest as a thing that happens in India is a thing worth looking into. At least it's lovely. um, Drew says that barely any subscribers actually watch the videos through subscriptions tab. Easy to miss any videos. Yeah, it's all about the algorithm. It's all like, I mean, I go to my subscriptions tab every now and then to check up on people, but I don't have a whole bunch of people I'm subscribed to. I don't know, people are subscribed to thousands and thousands and thousands. But the thing is that, yes, it's all about discovery. YouTube sort of puts it up there on your main channel, and that's where most people watch it, on their front page. So if you don't get shown that, or if you don't have notifications turned on, if you haven't hit the bell, like all the things that people ask you to do, it's all about reaction. So did you click on the video? Did you hit like? Did you hit comments? And did you watch it? How long did you watch? And I do think, and I've heard people say, I have a very short attention span. Your videos are too long for me. And I'm like, that's fine. I mean, I get it, but I can't help but make longer videos. I'm not a short form kind of person. I like live streams. I actually like longer videos, even though they're longer to edit. And I like discussion. I'm not a researcher. I'm not here to say, here is the history of comics, or here is a very valuable comic. Those are not what I have to offer at all. I think what I enjoy is talking about comics. I like talking about being a reader, and about the act of reading, and the joys of reading, and the analysis, and the analysis of the book and how it affected me. I'm very influenced by those comics YouTubers that I often talk about, who's, you saw me chatting with them, Comic Crack and Sleepy Reader and Earl Grey, the sort of comics vlog. That's what this is, really. It's a comics vlog. I want to bring more and more production to it. I want to bring more and more voices to it. And I want there to be a sort of approach to how we talk about reading, how we talk about comics that we love. And we don't have to agree, but we want to say that it's worth the discussion. And so it's creating that room for that discussion that I'm really interested in. And I don't know if YouTube is the right place for that, or if YouTube is the um, is going to reward that type of behavior. It seems very anti-algorithm. So the Patreon, etc., is a way of countering that. It's to say that, look, I get onto the thing and I look at this dashboard, and every time I put up a video, it says, this video is 10 out of the last 10 videos. It's worse than all the other ones you've published. Every single time you're just being thrown all these stats, you're being thrown all these percentages. Views are down 15%. Subscribers are down. And even to a person that it doesn't matter, even to a person who's got so much on their mind that this is the think about, even to me, it makes a difference. It sticks in your mind. This constant, social media constantly giving you these numbers and giving you these percentages and giving you these bar graphs, etc. It's trying to tell you something, and it's trying to make you go a particular way. And that's fine, because there are certain things that I love learning. I love learning about retention and what holds people's attention to a certain extent. But after that, I'm not going to be catering to the algorithm. So some way of countering that has to be found, I think. And that's what it's all about. It's the same thing that we were talking about publishing, is that there is one game that is the game that is set up for the big dogs to play the big numbers. But it's foolish to think that everyone needs to play that game, or will be able to play that game, or should, or wants to play that game. What about people who want to play a different game? Is it not possible for them to coexist in this area? That's the larger question that one needs to get to, I think. Um, Aris says social media algorithm seems to be more frustrating to the creators. It is a little. I mean, back in the day, and I'm still very, very happy about the fact that anybody chooses to watch any of my videos at all. But I take a lot of effort, and I think I know every single one of my videos. I know which video I mentioned which one in, because they all matter to me to a certain extent. I know where I put what kind of lighting, and where I experimented with what type of title animation. All of those things are also things that I'm sort of booking in there. So I think the frustration isn't really about the numbers not going up. The frustration is about not knowing what is based on. It's such a black box. And so I'm thrilled that people watch my videos, but I'm also aware that a video that I made 3 years ago got more views than a video that I made a month ago. Now, could it be because I've gotten worse at making videos and this video is less interesting and things? I'm sure it can be any of those things, but I don't know for sure. And I think that's the larger frustration. Um, find alternatives, usually Patreon. Yes, I've liked Patreon. I mean, I'm sure Patreon has its problems as well, but what I like about Patreon, and to a certain extent the YouTube memberships, although YouTube memberships take a much bigger chunk than Patreon, is that it, as I was saying, it doesn't solve the problem of views. Just because I have a Patreon doesn't mean now I'm going to get 5,000 views on a video. But what it does is it counters that. It says that it doesn't matter. You don't need to care about the advertising revenue. You don't need to care about the views. You have a group of people who are all about what you're doing and how you want to do it. And they're kind of cool with your weirdness or your idiosyncrasies. And that, I think, is the is the good thing about it, is that reassurance is not just an assurance, it's a counterbalance to these things. So it becomes a cool way of countering that. And I'm not speaking about it only financially, although financially, if I could make from advertising, like if 10,000 people were watching, then I'd get more ad money and then I'd be able to cover all the bills and all of the costs and buy all the comics that I would want. So it wouldn't matter in one way. But I don't know. I mean, I don't like that advertising thing anyway. I don't like what's being advertised. I don't like ads. I know it's a necessary evil, but that doesn't mean it's not evil. So I like the counter effect that Patreon has and the way that it allows one to be individualistic. um Try some of the modern creators of Lean Claire. Yeah, I know. The Blake and Mortimer stuff that I was reading got to a certain level, and now I've got to find some more. um You're on a work computer, so simple camera and mic, but happy to play a test. Yes, we can do that. Although I believe I may have gabbed for too long. Maybe we can do another quick live stream next weekend in which I put a link up there and have people join. Because now I think I have 10 minutes left on my call. Um, oh, that's very good to know that the recommendations have played to. One could pay for an ad-free YouTube. Yes, I pay for an ad-free YouTube. I mean, like, I pay for YouTube Premium, which I think in India is not as expensive as it is in the United States. I mean, it's not cheap, but I pay for ad-free. But that doesn't mean all my viewers do. And I YouTube shows ads on my videos. Uh, Based on whether the viewers are paying or not. So that's a different thing. For the love of gaming, yeah. Although I'd be, I wouldn't really call myself a gamer, but I do like games. I like board games. I like poker. I like video games. Games in general are cool. Um, Vincent says you should search videos of others turning off ads, see their experience, and try yourself. Yeah, I guess so. Although, I can't really compare it because I don't have the background data of those other people. So, if they turn off, and how do I know what's going on? With me, I can see my data and I can do an exact comparison. I can compare April 15th to April 15th, for example. I can compare this video and I can see its impressions and its click through ratio, click through rate, and all of that kind of stuff. So, uh, if the Tintin videos are delisted, yes, I will unlist them, as in I will make them, they'll still be available in the playlists and they'll be available for anyone with a link to them. They just won't be discoverable anew. Just as an experiment, just to see what happens. Saurav says he found my channel only when he turned off his watch history. Yeah, I think that's interesting. That algorithmic idea. Now you're talking about discovery. And I'm very happy that you found this channel. But I'm really intrigued about people who have discovered my channel, who have subscribed, and who don't get to see any of my videos now, or they don't care to see any of my videos. If they, that's what I should make a short video saying, if this is the first video of mine you're watching in more than a year, please unsubscribe. I should do it that way, because here I'm, sort of preaching to crowd. Juice Sword is Tintin for grown-ups. Yes, I've seen a couple of different things that count as Tintin for grown-ups. All right, so now we are at the end of my time period. However, I did say that I am going to take a look at this thing. And so what I'm going to try to do is I've now moved over the camera over here and I'm going to stand up. So this is a new thing that I'm going to try is I'm going to see if my microphone can come up with me. Yes, it can. And now I'm going to keep the microphone. I hope everyone can still hear me because I've had to take my headphones off. But when I take myself over here, I can continue talking into the microphone. All right. So this is the Scott Pilgrim Oni Press 20th century box. And this 20th anniversary box, SP20, I'm guessing this is the PS2 logo. And that's what it's getting. I got to be very careful about that. There you go. So this one, I was very happy to see this box reached me without any dents, and that was great. But I did on my way here drop it on my toe. So I did ended up, I think, maybe denting a little corner and denting my toe as well. Okay, so this is the top of the box. This is the front. These are the two sides. And this is the black and white edition. There is another box like this, which is the color edition. And this opens at the top, I believe, very similar to the Akira box set, which snaps open like this and then has a sort of magnetic clasp over here. Ooh, look at that. All right, so you've got the 6 hardcovers. This is just cardboard over here on the sides, and then you've got a book of collected extras. This is probably one of those things that makes the box set valuable or box set worth getting, because this is something that you already have. They do seem to have a new cover design for each of them. All right, so you've got Luke on the cover over there. So these seem to be brand new covers for each of the volumes, not the color or the black and white original covers, which is cool. Let's take a look inside the first volume. And I'm keeping an eye on that timer. Nice. This is a parchment like yellowish off-white paper. It's not pure white the way that the originals are. This is a beautiful looking reproduction. Now, those of you who have read The Sun is Made of Silver, the 2 chapters, you will note that we all are fans of that off-white bond paper, which is the paper that we've used. A number of people have praised us and said that they love the paper, they love the cardstock cover, and that was a big not difficult, it was an easy choice for us. And I love the fact that they've chosen this more yellowish, thicker parchment like paper for this edition. I wonder if this is the same kind of paper they've used for the color edition, or if it's only for showing off the black and white edition. Beautiful design. You've got some kind of, now I can tell you for a fact that these are the registration marks and these are the crop slug lines and bleed, etc. You've got some sort of print material that's been left as if forgotten on the covers. It's beautiful, beautiful. I did wonder about the double dip, but looking through these editions, it looks it looks fantastic. Now, just real quick, I want to take a look at what this collected extras probably what this collected extras has in it. All right, so we've got, oh, so they've got extras according to the volumes. So versus the world, infinite sadness, well, and finest hour. Oh, there seems to be new comics. Oh, these are early strip was created to promote volume 1. That's interesting. You've got some character sketches over here. More comics that I'm guessing that these are variations. You got some scripts. There's the pixel illustration for volume 4. There are the original paperback covers, volume 5 cover art. This is the unused draft. This is the final cover. I wonder if they are. And then they've gotten into the coloring as well. It seems like a fantastic book, a great book of extras to have. And of course, what this reminds me, as I was saying, not just now, because of this extras, one volume of extras, this reminds me even more of the Akira box set. And of course, there's something over here, adhesive sheets, posters, and a holographic print. These are the extras that come with this box, but all in all, a wonderful package over here. All right. So there you have it, everyone. I have gotten my final warning telling me that my live stream will end in 5 minutes because of the 2 hour limit on what is this EV Mux. So let me know what you think of this live streaming software. I'm still color grading it on OBS, but I did like the fact that I could share the comments up on the screen like this. This is something I've wanted to do, and the simple thing that everyone can do on their live streams that I've never been able to do is very, very pleasurable. But thank you everyone for watching this extremely haphazard and last minute sort of ranty, I hope not, but an update into what we've been up to. As I said, this live stream may self destruct at the end of this. So if you were here for this, you might end up being the only people who watch this. Thank you so much for watching. Once more, if you want to join the Patreon, you can find the link below. If you're in the UK and you want to order a couple of copies of my comics, this is the last couple of days in which they'll be available, because after that, my friend is flying back. Thank you, everyone. This has been great, and I will be back shortly. I've got a long video that I'm working on and a couple of short videos that I hope to have up before that long video. Thank you very much. This has been For the Love of Comics, and I'll catch you at the next video.